Welcome to DFS JAGS PGA Golf Show 2022 Sanderson Farms Championship, DraftKings picks and bets for all 5 of you watching the show. Yes, I'm talking to you, Mom. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. Yes, we have golf, but producer Mike will continue to do his pre- and post-game breakdowns of the Buffalo Bills action each week in the NFL. In addition, Chris and Rick will continue to keep you armed with the best fantasy football information available anywhere on the internet. Anywhere. Nobody beats it. Speaking of the latter, joining me on the line, post a last-second Ravens victory over the hapless Detroit Lions, El Dentiste de Baltimore, Dr. Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's going on, man?
Hey man, good. It was a great week. Ryder Cup was awesome, fun. It's a fun Sunday in football. It was a really fun sports weekend for sure.
Yeah, there were exciting games. We were talking about it kind of before we hopped online here, some of the events, some of the weird things that happened, not only in the Buffalo game, but in the Arizona Cardinals game. But obviously for the content related to this show, Ryder Cup, I don't want to spend a ton of time or energy talking about it because I feel like it's kind of a beat to death. But I do want to get your opinion on a couple things that kind of were takeaways from me from the event, and would love to hear just kind of a recap from you. But I think first and foremost, it was something that you brought up in the show last week, and that's just scar tissue, that term, right? Like the Ryder Cup team for the U.S. for the last, 3 decades has been dealing with this issue where they never really could show up and perform up to spec. And then, Stricker builds this team. It's a brand new generation. It's all young cats. On paper, it's the best team that's ever played for the Ryder Cup on the U.S. team. And they come out and they smoke Team Europe, a team that had basically just dominated. So that narrative that was kind of hanging out there, like, could they come together as a team? Because it was always the problem, even like the Tiger and Phil era, but there was no scar tissue. This team didn't have any of the mental damage or baggage that was there from prior Ryder Cups. And the team just played absolutely fantastic and dominated like they should have on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was the it felt more like an actual team
Yeah.
for USA than I've ever seen before, to be completely honest with you. Like they seemed like they really enjoyed playing together, the guys that played together, and then just the team atmosphere just seemed like these 12 guys really clicked together. And I'm to be completely honest with you, I'm a little worried for Europe. I don't know if they're going to be able to beat this infusion of youth on this team, this young squad that we got. But then again, on top of that, we never know. We could always say the dysfunction's still there on the team, on USA, and they haven't won a Ryder Cup in Europe in decades. I don't even know the last time they won a Ryder Cup in Europe. So we'll see how it looks in 2 years. I can't wait for it. It's going to be in Rome and Italy. The USA hasn't won a Ryder Cup on foreign soil in forever. If they bring this kind of same squad, it's going to be tough for Europe to win. But like we said before, Europe gets to set up the course. They pick the course. They have an advantage with the fans and everything like that. So we'll see. But I'm really interested to see how the Europe team is gonna shake out in 2 years with who they decide to go with, because I think all these old guys are done, like Westwood and Poulter and these guys, possibly even Sergio. I don't know, but yeah, these old guys are done. So I'm interested to see who the young guys are going to be for Europe that are going to compete with the Morikawas and the Schefflers and all these guys. And they have Hovland, but I want to see who that next crop of young Europe guys are going to compete for Europe is.
Yeah, that I think that is a big thing, and we've talked obviously a lot about how this next generation of U.S. stars has kind of come of age. But to your point, Europe's got some guys kind of lurking. You've got the Hogard brothers, and you've got Bobby Mack, so you've got and Guido, guys that just missed the cut in terms of getting on the Ryder Cup team this year, but they're young talent. They just haven't necessarily risen to the level that the guys of the U.S. have. So I think that question mark will remain for obviously Team Europe until we get there to Rome in 2 years. But it'll be interesting. I could see a case where a guy like Westwood or Poulter goes immediately from being a guy who competed 2 years ago to being a captain, right? So I don't know if that's the case for 2 years from now. I haven't even thought about the Ryder Cup in Rome, other than the fact that it is in Rome, and obviously I'm looking forward to see the U.S. compete again, this team come back. But I think things are looking up for Team US, and I think if there's ever an opportunity for them to win in Europe, this could be the team to do it. Whether or not they're able to bring everybody back, I mean, that's a whole other question. But that core group of guys that you would consider being in the top players in the world and in the U.S., obviously, those guys are going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, and another thing I want to say is that I really hope that they give Stricker a shot in Europe. I think he was a really good captain this time. I think the players really liked playing for him. From all the Instagram posts that I've seen online and stuff like that, they've been dedicating individual posts to how wonderful of captain Steve Stricker was. So um, we know the guys that are on the horizon to be a captain for USA, Zach Johnson, Tiger, Phil, like these guys are on the horizon, obviously. But I would like to see in Rome, I want to see Stricker get another shot to try to win one on foreign soil.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. I can't remember, when a captain's done 2 sessions. I figured typically they rotate through that every 2 years, but I think winning solves a lot of problems, right?
Mhm.
And to go in there and win, especially the way they did, I think a lot of people are pointing to what Stricker did and saying, man, he really pressed all the right buttons. My thing is, I don't think you could make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
They picked the right course, they set it up correct, and they had the best team they've ever had.
Yeah.
So basically, all they had to do was not basically shit the bed, and
Yeah.
they should go out there and walk all over him, and that's what happened. So I'm not that I'm in any way, shape, or form like demoting anything that he did with the team. It's just, hey man, you walked out there with a bunch of stallions. Just let the horses run, and they'll find a way to win, and that's what happened.
Yeah. He even got Bryson and Brooks to end their feud, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
I think.
Bryson is a point that I do want to bring up, but the next point that I wanted to mention was, and this was something that you and I talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think we even mentioned it on one of the football shows, is I got Scotty Scheffler wrong, right? Like Scotty Scheffler was great. He played fantastic. And I think it was the exclamation point on his Ryder Cup was him going out there on Sunday and birdieing like 5 out of the first 6 holes and just walking all over the best player in the world in match play. And for him to do that to Rom, I mean, I can honestly stand here and raise my hand and say, Scotty Scheffler, you deserve to be on that team, and I got that deal wrong.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He belonged on that team. I thought he was a great partner for Bryson. What they were doing together as a team
100%.
was wonderful. Scotty was just hitting fairways and then just basically letting Bryson just bomb it away, and then his iron game was great. But yeah, Scotty was great. I want to see him. I want to see him win a tournament on the PGA Tour. I think he's poised to do it. He's competed in all the majors. I can't wait to see him actually like hoist an individual trophy.
Yeah, he's that next level of guy that hasn't won yet. There's besides, Xander and Cantlay and Morikawa, these guys are superstars now. They're the best players in the world, obviously. But you've got kind of that next tier of guys, the Sam Burns, the Scotty Schefflers, that are starting to rise in the sport. And like I want to see Scheffler win so we can kind of get that monkey off his back, and whatever question marks we may have about his ability to close, hopefully those go away. So I think he's poised to win a big tournament like you this year. I will be keenly watching what he does. And kind of like Finau, I think his number is going to continue to be like in the high 20s, low 30s, even though the guy's never won a tournament on tour.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
The last thing, and this is something you did bring up as well, too, was Bryson. We talked about what the Ryder Cup could do for him if he did it right. And he went out there, he played his game. The course was set up perfectly for him. He did what the fans wanted. He was a fan favorite. He reconciled his relationship with Brooks for whatever that is worth. But my question to you is this the Patrick Reed effect, where we love him 1 week every 2 years and then we hate his guts 103 weeks out of the next 2 years? Or do you think maybe Bryson gets something out of this long term, where the casual sports fan and kind of the broader golf world embrace who he is and the nuances and weird things that he has?
I think it kind of depends on what he does moving forward. I think if he continues to kind of keep his head down and win tournaments and play great golf, then he's going to be beloved. But if he does Patrick Reed things and continue to cheat and do stupid shit in the media, like he's going to go back to just being hated again. So yeah, I think I think he really enjoyed this past week. I think he loved the fans being on his side for once. And I think he's going to sit down with his team. He's going to sit down with his public relations people, like whoever, and they're going to basically kind of formulate a plan here that says, yeah, you got to do this, this, and this to keep the fans on your side. And I think he's gonna follow through with that plan.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of keeping fans on your side, did you happen to catch of any of Bryson's long drive competition today?
Yeah, he hit one like 417 or something like that.
Yeah, I think he hit 3 over 400. He hit one
Yeah,
like 408, one 411, and one 412.
yeah,
Like he dominated the heat. He walked away with the first round of the competition. I mean, there was a guy that hit one like 460 today, but
yeah.
in terms of
Berkshire hit one 455.
yeah, his
Yeah,
buddy. Yeah.
yeah,
So the thing is that he's probably not going to win this tournament, but he is going to get into that top 8 that compete on ESPN at like a
yeah.
Wednesday night at like midnight.
Mhm.
But he's going to get into that, and I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, watching the live feed on YouTube, which pretty much tells you all you need to know about
Yeah.
the pro long drive tour. It was still cool because it was like he was walking out there. Every one of the guys who he's competing against in his heats, he was high fiving them. Everybody was there to see Bryson, and I thought he did a great job of kind of doing what he needed to do. That's the one thing that I would say about Bryson in terms of golf is when he's expected to rise up and perform, the guy shows up, right? Like
Yep.
he's a gamer. And I think to your point, like he craves the support from his fellow competitors, the media, like just the landscape of folks that follow him. Like he plays better when people are rooting for him. So I think like you, I think that leash is short, right? Like it's like they'll love him, but
Very short leash.
he's got to be careful, man, because if he goes sideways in any way, shape, or form, everybody will turn on him, and that's the part that scares me. Is I genuinely like the kid, and
Yeah.
I want him to see do well, and I hope that they can get him under control.
Yeah, I just want to make one last point about the Ryder Cup, and then we can move on to Sanderson Farms. We did say last week in our Ryder Cup preview show that uh, at least I did for Europe, the most important player was going to be Rory. I think we knew what we were going to get with Rom, we knew what we are going to get with Vic, but if we are going to get bad Rory, it was going to be really tough for Europe to win, and if we were going to get good Rory, they would have been able to compete, and he came out and he played awful, and he benched himself on Saturday morning. Basically, he told Patrick that they shouldn't play him on Saturday morning, and he played good in singles. He beat Xander straight up on Sunday, but in the 4-ball and foursomes, he was just terrible, and it just kind of, I think, brought the team down a lot. And then we saw his interview after the Ryder Cup, how emotional he was and stuff like that. So we know how much it meant to him. But I think golf is good when Rory is good. He's very important to the game of golf. So I hope he turns it around this season. He didn't play well this year. He had a win at Quail Hollow, but that was one good week, and the rest of the weeks were not good. So I hope he takes some time this offseason, and I hope he turns it around this upcoming season and wins some more tournaments.
Yeah, I agree with you. Golf is more interesting when Rory McIlroy is good. He played like trash. The other things that I thought were at least noteworthy was, Ian Poulter continues to be undefeated in Ryder Cup play. Played one of the better U.S. players in Tony Finau, beat him soundly in match play.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited for him, even though I wasn't rooting for Team Europe, just to see Ian Poulter go out there and continue to be the guy that he is during Ryder Cup, validates the selection, all of those things. And then I think the other thing is this year really feels like it's become JT and Spieth's team. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are the runaway captains. It's their team. They're going to be the face of this thing for probably the next decade. And I hope that just like Rory, Spieth gets back to his ceiling where he's one of the best players in the world, because much like Rory, when Jordan Spieth is good, golf is more interesting.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
So, well, we digress and we move into another swing season event into the Sanderson's Farms. Again, these tournaments, they're great opportunities for folks, especially on DraftKings, because there's a lot of people playing NFL. And so you're going to get people who are going to have money in their DraftKings accounts because they won an event or won a tournament on DraftKings playing the NFL, and they're going to throw some money on golf. And if you
Mm-hmm.
understand who to play, the dynamics, you have tools like Fantasy National or like Rick Gaiman's tool, you're going to have a significant advantage over a lot of the field that are playing in these tournaments. So swing season is a great time to make money. It's where I started winning tournaments last year. Rick, I know you've had success in these tournaments as well, too. You hit a big one, I think, in a swing season event. So this is a place where you can really build your bankroll and make some money. They're not the most exciting events, right? And the fields are, pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's a ton of opportunity for folks. So while it's hard to get excited about them, I think from a betting perspective and from a DraftKings, a daily fantasy perspective, it is a great opportunity to make money and take down tournaments.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, how exciting can a tournament be when the best player on the field is Sam Burns? I mean,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on, he's $11,000. So yeah, I agree. Even though that's just how it's priced, and he's the best player in the field, it's still a good. It's still, they have $100,000 prizes on DraftKings, and if you can build properly and figure out these new guys from the Corn Ferry Tour and who you should play, like I think it's a really good chance for you have an edge over the random Joe Schmo that has no idea what to do in golf.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we're at CC of Jackson. It's a long parkland style course with small greens and narrow fairways. The course is pretty long at 7,500 yards, but a lot of that length is wrapped up in the par fives. So that creates a lot of like scoring opportunities on par fours. Most of the par fours are going to measure 400 to 450 yards. They've got some drivable ones. So it's really going to create a lot of birdie opportunities for some of your better ball strikers and guys in this field. The course doesn't have a ton of teeth. There's not a lot of long rough. It doesn't have wind or weather lurking this week. So it really opens up like the field of potential winners who can compete and contend this week. When courses are long or narrow or windy, or they like favor some skill set, like the player profile becomes very, very narrow and really condenses down the field of potential winners. In a field like this, anybody can win. If you look at the last few winners here, I think 7 of the last 9 winners of this tournament have come from outside of 60 to 1. Recent winners like Sergio and Munoz at champs and Cam Champ, they were ball strikers, they were beast off the tee, and they used those weapons to overpower the course. But guys like Armour and Malnati and Chris Kirk have also won here, and those are guys who are known to be putters and have great long irons. So it is the type of course where a number of different skill sets can win. For me, just like I do every week, I'm leaning ball strikers off the tee. If you look at the last 3 years, Sergio, Munoz, and Champ, they all finished inside the top 5 in strokes gained off the tee. Driving distance can be a huge advantage here, especially because there really is no rough to speak of. Fairways gained can be important for the shorter hitters. In dry conditions, balls can roll out a lot farther. So guys who are hitting the ball 270, 280 yards, you can get rollout to 310 yards. So you're going to make par fours shorter and more scoreable. Approach every single week approach. Like I said, I feel like it's more of an off the tee week because that weapon can be so important, especially on those shorter par fours. But approach is important. And then wedges, right? 125 to 150 yards. Who can stick the ball close? The greens are Bermuda. So that is another thing to consider, when you're talking about Bermuda putters and Spike Weeks putting. Sergio, when he won this tournament last year, he didn't lose 4 strokes putting like he does every week. He gained 2. So, metrics like that, guys that you can lean on who are consistently very good off the tee, very good on approach, good from key proximities, are going to be the guys that I'm going to target this week. But I do think you have to look for guys who can kind of come out of nowhere and have spike putting weeks like Denny McCarthy or Sam Burns when he won, or Patton Kizzire when he won earlier last year. What are you looking at this week, Rick?
Yeah, same things. I mean, ball strikers off the tee and stuff like that. Obviously, Sergio last year, spike putting week, putting with his eyes closed. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life, but
It worked.
it worked. Yeah. So I do think I favor guys that are better on Bermuda this week for sure. Your Burnses and your Keith Mitchells and people like that. So I definitely like these guys that putt better on Bermuda, but yeah, the normal stuff, ball strikers off the tee, that and wedges. It's another birdie fest. It's going to be a low scoring event. So yeah, just lean towards those guys that have those all around kind of games.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of comp courses, you can look at last week just because from a course
Mhm.
profile, it's going to be very, very similar. Look at the Rocket Mortgage, even go and look at like TPC Deer Run and the John Deere Classic. Like you're going to find a lot of the same names at the top of those leaderboards that you're going to find here traditionally. There are guys that are course horses, and we'll get into that. But why don't we start at the top of the board? The guys above 10K. We've got 5 names here. You mentioned the guy off the jump, Rick. That is Sam Burns, number 1, $11,000. He's followed up by Will Z, Sergio Garcia, Sung J M, and Corey Connors. I know you're a Will Z guy. For me, I think my plan is going to be to fade the top 3 guys in this range: Garcia, Zalatoris, and Burns. Im is a guy that finished second here. Connor is a guy that finished second here. When I'm talking about ball strikers, Corey Connors is a ball striker's ball striker. He's captain of Team No Putt right there with Sergio Garcia. So I like Connors a lot this week. I think Im, who's been hitting the ball with his irons much, much better, and off the tee it's not great, but it's been passable here for the last few weeks. If he has a spike putting week like he did here 2 years ago, I think he could find himself in contention. So for me, it's probably him and Connors at the top of the board. Who do you like in this range?
It's always Will Z for me. He's so damn good. Ultimate ball striker. I absolutely love Will Z. I can't fade him. I can fade Burns. I can fade Sergio. I can fade those guys, but I can't fade Will. I have to play him in my lineups, and I really like him. Besides Will, I agree with you. I think this is a really good course for Corey Connors. I think it really sets up really well for him. I'm not sure. Does he have history here? Has he played here before? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, Connors does here. I want to say 3 years ago, he
Okay.
finished in second or third place. But like, there's guys like Peter Malnati who's won here before, and then he finished, second last year to Sergio in this tournament. So
Yeah.
there's some guys farther down the board, but Connors and Im both have a second place finish here in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I definitely lean more towards Connors besides Woolsey in this category. But I will give one interesting stat that I saw on Twitter today. It's a tweet from Justin Ray. If you follow him on Twitter, he said that Sergio Garcia in his last 5 starts following the Ryder Cup has been a second, a T9, a T2, a T17, and a win. So that's I mean, yeah, I mean, he's coming off that emotional roller coaster last week at the Ryder Cup, but he seems to have followed up like with his next event and plays pretty well. So I know he's coming in as the lowest owned guy in this range, so he could be a leverage spot if you think he rides that great ball striking and great play that he had last week at the Ryder Cup. So I definitely could see as a leverage spot playing some Sergio.
Yeah, I mean, even bad Sergio seems like he'll be okay at this course. Like if Sergio plays like he, because there was a stretch before he won at the Sandersons in 19 and 20 where he was god awful, right?
Yeah.
The ball striking started to fall off. The putting was as terrible as it's ever been, and he just was not making cuts. He was bad. It was probably the worst stretch of golf that I've at least seen him do on the PGA Tour. But even bad Sergio last year was still making cuts, still contending. I mean, God, the guy he got gained 2 strokes putting and he won this tournament. So, to your point, the big question is the mental fatigue from the Ryder Cup in those events that you talked about. The big thing is in most of those Ryder Cups, he was walking away a winner.
Yeah.
So what happens now that he's coming off a pretty disappointing loss? I mean, Team Europe felt very, very confident despite all of the metrics going into that. And for them to get beaten that soundly across the board, you wonder what kind of an impact does it have mentally? Is there fatigue? Will he have a hangover? I don't know. I'm actually really surprised that he hasn't withdrawn from this tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, as the defending champion, I guess he feels some obligation to be there and to represent the giant 1 foot cock trophy that they like to give out after.
One of my favorite trophies in golf. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, there's one that looks like I think it's the Valspar. It looks like a paintbrush like swirling in a circle with a ball in the middle. Equally as terrible, but yeah, no, I think like I said, the 1.5 foot giant cock is always a great one.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Sergio, you just gotta determine whether or not it's a mental fatigue. I think last year it was his first time ever playing this tournament, and he just came out and won it. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to fade a guy who like 3 days ago I was watching him just stripe the ball like left and right and being an awesome team with John Rahm, and I don't know, but yeah, I just can't fade Will Z, and I definitely like some Connors. So the leverage spot here is Sergio, but Will Z is my main play.
Yeah, I can see going to Will Z. My only concern with grabbing him is, when you get down lower into the field, like especially below 7K, there are some guys, but I mean, it's few and far between, and you're going to see ownership concentrate a lot of those spots. So I wonder about lineup construction if you're using a guy like Willsey or Burns at the top of the board, because it is going to have an impact on what kind of guys you can fit into the lineup.
Yeah.
So dropping down to the next tier, the 9,000s, I think this is probably going to be the most popular spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's headlined by our boy Mito. He showed up, finished T3, probably should have won the tournament last week, right? Homo walked away the victor, or I should say 2 weeks ago, but Mito, from I guess all measurables short of putting, he played phenomenally. He ranks number 1 in the stat model, number 6 in my overall model. Keegan, Siwoo, Tringali, Munoz, HV3, Cam Davis, which seems like the only kind of weird outlier in this mix, and then Charlie Hoffman. I think ownership is going to be spread pretty thick in the 9,000s.
Mhm.
Who do you like here, Rick?
Got to go back to Mito. It's Mito week. It seems like everyone that I've listened to, he's going to be chalky, of course. I mean, it seems like every podcast that I've listened to, everybody's on Mito this week. Coming off that third place finish at the Safeway, you got to go back to him. He looks so good. I mean, like his ball striking is amazing. He's a good putter. He's great off the tee. There's just it's hard for me through his short, brief PGA Tour career. It's hard for me to find a real big hole in his game. I mean, he's even a pretty good putter. So definitely going to go back to Mito. He is going to be chalky, but I'll eat it with him. And then, like you said, the outlier here, for some reason, I like Cam Davis this week. He had a sixth place finish here last year. Before that, he had a 28th place finish. So I like Cam Davis. He's great off the tee. We know that his driver is his strength, and he knows how to bomb it off the tee. And we saw it at the Rocket Mortgage. He can compete in these birdie fests and win a tournament. Why not? Why not Cam Davis again?
Yeah, no, Davis, in terms of ball striking, the profile, the type of guy that he is, the way he can dominate off the tee when he's hitting the ball well, he checks a lot of boxes from the ball striking perspective. I think the other thing is just from an ownership piece, like Charlie Hoffman's going to be one of the most highly owned guys this week, right? And if
Yeah.
you look at his profile, to your point about how he's played at this course, I mean, him and Cam Davis are basically identical. I think both guys have a top 10 and a top 30 in back-to-back years at this course. You've got Streelman right below them at the top of the eights, who's also there. And then HV3. People love playing HV3. So Cam Davis is kind of sandwiched in the middle of that. He checks a lot of boxes, like we talked about, from the statistical side, from ball striking. He's got good course history, so I can see going to him. I'm not used to seeing him priced at this level. I mean, HV3, I can kind of see because he's been playing well lately. I realize the field is soft, but I'm just not used to seeing a $9,000 Cam Davis. He could have been priced at $9,000 or 7,200, and it wouldn't have made a lot of difference to me.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the difference between Cam Davis and like Seamus Power or something
Yeah,
like that? Like
exactly.
they're priced right near each other. So, but yeah, I agree. We didn't talk about Seb Munoz. I mean, he's good. We know he can rattle off birdies. He won this event 2 years ago. I think his lone win on the PGA Tour. I like some Seb Munoz too. He can definitely compete in the birdie fest as well. Good tee to green player, decent putter. So definitely like some Seb Munoz also.
Yeah, the one guy that I really like in this range that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, which I get it, is Keegan Bradley. Like, you talk about ball striking, and then he has these weird outlier spike putting weeks, and he wins, right? When he putts, he wins. And again, it happens like every 2 years on tour, but this course is kind of set up for him to do that.
Yeah,
You know,
top five finish last year.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Keegan, and if I can get a bit of a discount on ownership from Mito, that might be an ownership play for a lot of folks in the 9Ks, because I do think this area is just going to be peppered. You're going to have, I think, the lowest owned guy is probably going to be Siwoo Kim,
See
maybe
Cam, yeah.
Kim Gali.
Mhm.
But I think this area is going to be so heavily hit because of lineup construction that finding a guy with just a little bit of leverage in the 9Ks is going to be important.
Yeah, Siwoo is the only guy that I'm seeing right now that's coming in single digit ownership. Everyone else is double digit ownership, and with the chalk being Charlie Hoffman and Mito.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, HV3. I mentioned you mentioned Seabass. He's fantastic. He's a FOMO bet for me almost every single week. I bet Munoz, but again, he's a guy similar to Cam Davis. When he's priced at $9,000, that's really hard for me to stomach. But I probably, if I'm going to go chalky, it's probably going to be Hoffman for me in this area. Mito's almost impossible to stay away from. I do think he's going to end up winning one of these swing season events, and so I will continue to bet him until he actually wins a tournament, which I think is forthcoming. So
Yeah.
the 9Ks is going to be interesting, but let's go ahead and hop down to the 8,000s here. I mentioned it's headlined by Kevin Streelman. And Streelman, again, statistically, course history wise, he sets up very, very well. He's a different profile than a lot of the guys we just talked about. He's not going to overpower the course. He's not going to drive the ball 300 yards. What is he going to do? Is he hit the ball 270 yards, put it in the middle of the fairway, and stick long irons into greens. So, Streelman has a completely different plan for success at a course like this, but because the course isn't difficult, it opens it up. Other guys in this area, Seamus Powers, Grillo, who he seems to be a very contentious guy this week, right? Some people are like, hey, Grillo, he's a ball striker, sucks at putting. Same story. Sergio did it last year. Why not Grillo? And other people are just worn out, right? Like on playing Grillo week after week and seeing him just not perform.
Yeah,
So
it's tough.
yeah. So, and the other guys in this range that I think are interesting are the other side of that, right? Are guys like Wolf, Woodland, Wise, and Kazire, who have spike weeks where they play really, really well, and then they kind of disappear for months. Um, for me, if I'm going to take chances, it's probably going to be in this range. A guy like Wolf and Wise, I love the upside. They are known to have spike putting weeks. Both guys, their best surfaces are Bermuda. So if I'm going to take a chance, it's probably going to be on those two guys if I'm going to go chalky in the 9K.
You mean 8K, right? It is 8K, right? Yeah, 8K.
Yeah. I'm going to take chances in the 8K and then go chalky in the 9K.
The 9K. Gotcha. Yeah. If I'm eating the chalk with someone like Mito, I can't play someone like Aaron Wise here. Unfortunately, he's coming in super chalky. He's coming in the most highly owned in this range. Chalky Aaron Wise just in general doesn't sound the greatest, the greatest anyway. So he can easily miss the cut. So I'll definitely fade some Wise. I like Wolf. Why not with Wolf seeing maybe he has some motivation from last week, seeing his guys Vic and Morikawa and these guys completed in the Ryder Cup. Maybe he wants to be there in 2 years, or even maybe compete for a President Cup spot this year. So I like Wolf. I think this course sets up well for him. We just never know with Wolf because it's.
Yeah.
He's so volatile that it's good for DraftKings when you're playing like a GPP and you like a volatile guy who can win the tournament or finish dead last. But I mean, if we're going to talk about just overall skill set, I think Matthew Wolff is probably a better player than Sam Burns, to be completely honest with you, just overall talent wise. But he's just priced down here because of his bad form over the last year or so. He's been taking breaks because of his mental issues and stuff like that. But if he spikes here and he has a good driving week and good iron week, watch out. Matthew Wolff can easily win this tournament. But yeah, other than Wolf, I like Patton Kazire, like you said. You can get a spike week from Patton Kazire this week. Like I tend to play Patton more than the normal guy, but I definitely like some Patton. And then good leverage spot I think this week coming in super low on CT Pan. Why not?
You stole my thunder. I love CT Pan this week.
Yeah, why not? I'm looking at my ownership projections right now. It's coming at 4.3%. Why not as a leverage play off of a chalky Wise right there?
Yeah, I mean CT Pan again. We talked about the profile and the avenues to have success. The ball striking has been very good as of late. He's got a top 15 finish at this course last year. He's coming off a top 10 in an event that had a very similar course profile last week. I think CT Pan sets up perfectly. And for me, I like him better as a DraftKings play this week because of the ownership leverage that you mentioned, and his odds are kind of shitty. Like you're getting a 45-1 CT Pan, and that doesn't seem like a lot of value to me. But at $8,100, and the fact that you're going to have some high ownership in a guy like Wise, I love the pivot to CT Pan. I think he's got a great chance to win this week, and I would not be surprised if he walked away with the 2-foot cock.
I like 2-foot cock.
Every time I mention it, just so we get to that.
I like him. And another leverage spot, I actually have him on my betting card this week. Not a really familiar names for people, especially the guys that don't really follow golf that are playing this week. Matthias Schwab, he's a good Euro player, very good ball striker, very good driver of the ball, just not a good putter at all. So I bet him this week. If we have a spike putting week for him, I could see him in contention on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a common theme for a lot of the same guys that we're betting and rolling into the lineups is take ball strikers and hope that they show up and have a good putting week. This is a course that has set up for guys to have spike putting weeks. Seabass, Cam Champ, Sergio, traditionally not good putters, showed up and had phenomenal putting weeks here. So I like the availability if you're going to go kind of variant on any one stat. Putting is the one to kind of throw out there and hope these guys can show up. There's a lot of Euros in the event outside of Schaub, and I think there's some opportunities down the board if anybody's familiar with those guys or have watched them on the Euro Tour. Guys like Aaron Rye, names of guys who are very, very good players, and they don't have the notoriety, so they're not getting the pricing in DraftKings this week.
Yeah, I like these Euro guys. I think what they're doing is they saw last year with what's that guy, South African guy, Garrick Higo, when he won
Yeah.
a shitty event like a Palmetto Championship where it was like a kind of a field similar to this that he goes out, plays up to their a world class player and wins the event, and then they're exempt for 2 years. So that's why I think they're taking a couple stabs here in the swing season for these guys like Schwab and Rye and all these kind of guys. So yeah, I expect to see them over the course of the next 7-8 weeks in the swing season. So definitely gotta pick and choose the Euro guys that you like and kind of maybe ride them every week until they hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Euros, if we drop down to the next tier, which is the 7,000s, we've got a bunch of those guys. Lucas Herbert, who's actually an Australian, but plays a lot of his golf on the European Tour. Aaron Rai, Lipsky, all guys in the lower sevens. And then a lot of what I would call stalwarts of the PGA Tour, your Brendan Todds, your Scott Staldings, your Ches Reeves, Patrick Rogers, names that we're familiar with and seem to show up in these off-season events, along with some Corn Ferry guys that are sprinkled into this mix. So it's an interesting mix of guys that are listed here. What are you seeing on the ownership front in terms of the 7,000? Is any one guy starting to be the chalkiest play from this area? Because there are a lot of names.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. From the lower 7Ks, no one's really coming in like super highly owned, but the upper 7Ks, looking like the chalk is going to be Taylor Pendrith, Scott Stallings, and Chez Reavie. Like those three guys are coming in double digit. I like Pendrith. He's a Corn Ferry guy. He's a really long hitter off the tee, Canadian guy. His game looks pretty good. But if you're going to try to get some ownership leverage right there, I love Keith Mitchell. Why not? Why not Keith Mitchell? I mean, the guy's a great putter on Bermuda, long off the tee. Get a good Keith Mitchell week. He's coming in super low owned, like 4%. He's a good pivot off of Pendrith ownership there. And why not pivot down to someone like Mac Hughes? I mean, Mac Hughes, we know what Mac Hughes is. Just get on the green and make 100-foot putt. That's his thing. So if you have a good Mac Hughes putting week or a good iron week, why not some Mac Hughes? But yeah, it looks like the ownership's coming in pretty high on those three guys, Pendrith, Stallings, and Reavie, and understandably why Pendrith is a young star. Stallings is just a consistent cut making machine at this event for some reason. I don't know why he loves this event so much, but he has a 6th, the 28th, the 39th, 43rd. The guy just makes the cut every year at this event. So yeah, those are the guys that most people are gravitating towards in the upper sevens. Like I said, in the lower sevens, everyone's pretty much coming in single digit. There's not really anyone that's chalky per se. I don't really have any takes here from the lower sevens. Who do you like from the lower sevens?
Yeah, I mean, my boy Ryan Armour's here. And Armour, this is an event that he's won. I like him a lot. Stalding's the other thing to mention is this is an event that he's actually won. So he plays this course every single year. I think he won it like in 2012. It's one of his lone wins on the PGA Tour. So it's a place that he shows up. The other thing too is I really like Norlander again this week. Again,
Yeah.
we talked about ball striking, the ability to have some spike putting weeks. Norlander's a guy that I rode pretty heavily through a good portion of last year. I think even during the swing season and the beginning of the calendar year. And this just sets up well for him, in my opinion. We haven't seen him for a while. I think the last time we saw him was a miscut at the beginning of the playoffs, but he finished in the top 5 here last year. And what's to say statistically if he lines up again that he can't do it again this year? So I like Norlander at 7,200, kind of looking a little bit farther down the board. There isn't a lot more that I like in this range. You've got a number of guys who are previous winners of this event: Nick Taylor, Scott Stallings, Ryan Armour, all guys who have won here at one point in time in their career. And then, a lot of, Zach Johnson, we talk about Ryder Cup. Zach Johnson was a vice captain at the Ryder Cup all last
Yeah.
week. So, maybe Zach Johnson, who finishes consistently in the top 30 here, rides a heater and has an opportunity to win. I mean, that's how variable this tournament can be, because it's just, there's not a lot of difficulty or big numbers lurking. Like if you can put it in the fairway and get hot on the greens, you can win this event. You can beat Zach Johnson. You can beat Tyler Pendrith and bomb the ball 350 yards down the fairway. There's so many opportunities to win. Scott Piercy's another name, that a guy who's been playing well as of late. I think he finished either just inside the top 10 or just outside the top 10 last week. Again, very similar course profile in terms of difficulty and skill set. So there's a lot of guys, and I think that's why we're not seeing ownership kind of gravitate to one or two names.
Yeah.
Is that there's just, you can kind of throw a dart at 7,000s and just hope you hit the right guy.
Yeah, I agree. A couple names for me down here that I like. Yeah, I agree. Ryan Armour. I like some Luke List, even though he's been kind of crap lately. He hasn't made a cut in a while, but he's a good driver of the ball. I like Norlander, like you said. Adam Svensson. He just had a win recently on the Corn Ferry Tour in the Corn Ferry Tour finals. He's been playing pretty well recently. Just drop down a little bit more. Kierdet Apibarnrat's been playing good recently overseas. I don't know exactly how he's been doing here, but he's been playing good overseas. And then like Nick Taylor. These guys are all just kind of like common names. You just got to kind of close your eyes and pick one of them. I did just realize right here that when I said that down here there's no one that was chalky, there is one guy that is chalky that's coming in at 10%. His name is Chad Ramey. He's a Corn Ferry guy who's really, really consistent. He seems like he's a very popular name in the circles this week. But if you don't know the name and you don't want to play a Corn Ferry guy at 10%, you can easily pivot to one of these other guys like Roger Sloan, Sepp Straka, guys that have been on the tour, that are coming in super low owned. So it's a good spot for you to, go overweight on a couple guys. You just got to pick and choose who you think is going to be the best guy down here and just go overweight on them and hope they hit.
Yeah, no, I think it's you can get some leverage. You can grab a guy. You just got to hope you pick the right guy. If you're talking about skill sets, guys who bomb the ball, Sepp Straka's down here at the bottom of the 7Ks. You mentioned Corn Ferry guys, Steven Jaeger, who was inarguably, other than Mito, the best performer on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. Obviously, he missed a cut last week or 2 weeks ago at Sanderson's, but he's there at the bottom of the 7K. So there's opportunities at this level, and like I said, I would rather take chances here than at the next level of guys, because when you dip below $7,000, it gets super ugly super quick. It's like a bar at 3 a.m. in Baltimore. You want to get the hell out of there as soon as possible.
I agree. Weird, super big price drop for Steven Jaeger, and like almost the same kind of feel. He was like in the mid 8,000s at the Safeway. I mean, the Fortinet Championship, and all of a sudden he's down one missed cut and he's down in the low sevens and a similar field. That's kind of weird for me.
Yeah, there could be value there. I like bounce back weeks, and for a guy like I said who's been so consistent, I mean, he was phenomenal with his irons on the Corn Ferry Tour. So
yeah, why not?
I mentioned him last week. He burned me, but I don't mind going back, giving him another chance. He's a guy who does have PGA Tour success in a previous lifetime. But Jaeger's a guy. If you're throwing darts at 7K, it's a better opportunity than if you're trying to throw darts below 7,000.
Yeah, I agree.
So speaking of the dumpster, as we go dumpster diving below $7,000, it's headlined by our boy Grayson Sigg. That's Pat Mayow's favorite guy, right? Because
Sigg.
He loves smoking cigs, and he thinks Grayson Sigg is out there burning darts on the course. But Sigg's a bomber. He hits the shit out of the ball. So, of course, a lot to like there. The other guy that I like here, Bizarro Patton Kazire, Hudson Swafford, right? Him, Harris English, they're all the same freaking guy. They all went to Georgia. They look exactly the same. The only thing I don't like about Hudson Swafford is he didn't go nuclear like Patton Kazire did after his round. Did you see that during the playoffs when Pat Kazire went absolutely nuts walking off the 18th green when he missed the putt?
He tore his hat in half.
Yeah, the guy who tears a hat in half? Like, that was insane.
Yeah.
But Hudson Swafford gets a boost in my book because him and Patton Kazire are basically the same guy. So I like Hudson Swafford this week, even though he missed the cut last week. Other names in this area, our boy Olympic medalist Rory Sabatini, the real Rory. He's down here at $6,900, and then a bunch of those Euro guys that we talked about that are starting to filter their way over. There's a ton of them down here, and then all those Corn Ferry guys are also in this range. Are there any names that really kind of pop out to you, or anybody that you want to talk about down here below 7,000?
When I look at this range, I kind of just gravitate towards guys that have good history here, that have played it multiple times and have good finishes. And those guys for me right now, I'm seeing are Denny McCarthy.
Yep.
Guy's a great putter. Obviously, we know that, but his history here for the last 3 years have been great. A 6th, the 18th, and a 7th. I like some Denny. Right at the same exact price. JT Poston. The last 2 years, he's at a 3rd and an 11th.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, Rory Sabatini, he's at a 12th and a 20th there. Why not these kind of guys that at least they have some modicum of success here that you can draw on. And even if they're not playing the greatest, at least they come back to a spot that they played well in the past, and it might spark you something. You got to look for something. You got to try to feel for something down in these 6K guys. You got to try to paint a picture for the guys that you like. But yeah, like you said, like these young guys, Grayson Sig, Nick Hardy, Alex Smalley, like I bet Smalley. So these guys coming off the Corn Ferry Tour, you just gotta kind of know their names and hope they spike and make like they kind of want to make an impression on the tour, basically. So yeah, I mean, you just got to kind of pick and choose here. John Augustine's another young guy that you could go to. He had a really good iron week at the Fortnite Championship, and just couldn't putt. So maybe he flips his putter and gets it going. But yeah, those are kind of the guys that I like. But then you also have the staples that you could always lean to, also like Peter Malnati. He has a second place finish here last year, and Richie Wierenski. Like these staples that we've seen on the tour. Wow, Austin Cook is back here. I haven't seen his name in a long time.
Yeah.
And then another guy I'll go to in the lower 6Ks. I went to him at the Fortnite Championship, and he played really well. Was Wyndham Clark. He had a good week a couple weeks ago. I like playing Wyndham Clark, especially when he's priced in the low sixes, because we know he can bomb the ball. We know he can get up to the tee to green is pretty good, and he just makes some putts, and he's in contention.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing down here is you just want guys that make the cut, like show up
Yeah.
on the weekend and like finish T50. Like that's what I need you to do, right? It's just make the cut and score me some points. So,
Yeah.
so here it's really about floor more than it is ceiling. You mentioned a number of guys who have some great course history here. JT Poston in his last 5 starts here never missed a cut. Two top tens and I think 3 top 30s. So he's a guy that's played well. Denny is the guy for me below
Yeah.
7,000. I mean, I'm usually not a Denny guy because he relies so heavily on the putter, but his course history here is fantastic. And like we talked about, spike putting weeks can mean everything
Mhm.
at this tournament.
It,
So,
it's got to be something like he can read the greens better here or something like that. I mean,
yep.
he puts good on every surface, we know that, but I mean, just the history here just tells us that he's a good play, and I think he's probably my favorite play in the 6K range, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, the other guy that I kind of like down here, and again, he doesn't have great course history, but again, we're talking about making cuts. Is Adam Shank? He had some peaks at some courses that I would consider calm courses. Played well at Rocket Mortgage, I believe. He made a cut here, or I should say, last week in Northern California, and he does have a top 10 here. So I do think Shank is another guy that you can go to, because I also think that you mentioned him, John Augustine, hot off of last week. I think a lot of people who are dipping down below $7,000 are going to see his name and click that button, and Shank's right there at the same price. So you could get some ownership equity by pivoting to a guy like that. The other guy that I kind of like, and I'm interested to see how he does. I don't know if I'll actually fit him in any lineups, but he's a guy who played pretty well last week. Is Kevin Tway? Like Tway's been super up and down, but he had a top 30 last week at a course that he won at obviously before. But again, we're talking about the kind of profile. His putting has been bad, but off the tee he's good, and if he can just kind of get it together, Tway's another guy that might line up here at a course like this. But I mean, I think by and large, I think trying to stay away from this area as much as possible is
I
probably a
agree.
recipe for success.
And if you start your lineup in the 9K ranges, you don't have to go down here at all.
Absolutely, yeah, you can avoid dipping down below
Yeah.
$7,000.
I'm gonna.
But I mean,
Can I give you one more name? You might not know this guy at all. He's a Euro guy. He's fresh on the tour. He finished 22nd at the Fortnite Championship. His name is Dewey Vanderwalt. He's a South African guy, I think. He's pretty good. I was watching him a little bit. I just for some reason, like one of my friends had him in his DraftKings lineup, so I just kind of just was paying attention to his name, and he was in contention on Thursday and Friday, and ended up finishing 22nd. He's long off the tee, one of these typical South African guys that know how to bomb it off the tee. So just a stab in the dark. Obviously, if you're playing 150 lineups like I am this week, you can have him in like 3 lineups and be overweight. So Dewey Vanderwalt, have him in a few lineups.
yeah, for me, I like South Africans and I like Australians on POA. Like I like them at California courses, But, Vanderwall is a guy that he spiked last week. And, again, down here where you're taking some chances and to your point, if you're going to do massive builds where you're doing more than 20 lineups, I could see floating a guy like that in there because to your point, he can be the difference between winning 20K and, finishing, T 153rd in a DraftKings lineup by not having him in your lineup. So
Yeah.
finding those gems in those massive builds is important. And a guy like Dewey, regardless of how terrible his first name is, that guy can be a reason to throw a dart. But,
yeah,
like I said, by and large, do not spend a lot of time. Don't have more than one of these guys down below $7,000 in your lineup. Bets for the week. So let's go to the betting card. We talked about the DraftKings lineup, but for me this week, I'm going to be heavily, heavily concentrated in that 20 to 50 range. This is probably the most, or I should say the highest number of guys that I've had in that range. But I mentioned I love Connors. I love Mito. I have a feeling about Keegan. HV3 was the only one. I ended up pulling the trigger, but, again, he's a good ball striker. He's a beast off the tee. Could he have a spike putting week? Maybe. His best surface is Bermuda. So I ended up clicking the button on HV3. Charlie Hoffman, he's going to be heavily owned, so I like him better in betting than DraftKings. And same thing for Aaron Wise. I like the number at 50 to 1. I think there's value. And then bombs, right? Like guys above 80 to 1. I mentioned Norlander. Dylan Fratelli. Dylan Fratelli was like, everybody was talking about him last week. And I think that we just might have been a week early on Dylan Fratelli.
Yeah. Is that the last guy on your card?
Yeah, last guy is actually Brandon Hagee, but
Okay.
Again, Hagee long off the tee. That's the only reason I have him in the lineup.
Yeah, I saw Fratelli on your card, and I was like, "Whoa, Fratelli at 150 to 1 in this field? Why the hell not?" So I added him to my card also. But yeah, my card's pretty similar to the Fortnite Championship. Will Z, Mito, and Hoffman. These are my staples here. I'm not playing Hoffman too much in DraftKings just because I'm going to be chalky with Mito there. So I got to kind of fade one of the two, and I think I'm just going to not fade Hoffman completely, but just be underweight on him and just bet him outright because he's such a good ball striker. He can definitely win this week. So Will Z, Mito, and Hoffman for me. And then my bombs, like I said, Schwab, Luke List. We didn't talk about him, Sahith Tagala. I think I'm going to bet this guy like every week just because he's like my Indian brother. I just kind of want to see him win. He's really good. Adam Schenk, you said you liked him. Adam Svensson, Dylan Fratelli, like you said, Alex Smalley, 150 to 1. And then just a little stab on Kurt Kitayama. I think 300 to 1 is a little too high on him. I think that's a little good value for him. He's an American that plays on the Euro Tour. And then also on the Euro event this week, we have a really fun event in Euro this week. We have the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship. I think what they do is they play 3 separate courses on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know what courses they are, but I know one of them is St. Andrews, and I think on Sunday they play St. Andrews again. So it's a fun event to watch. Just a couple bets that I have there. Brendan Grace, 25 to 1. Bobby Mack, 25 to 1. Thomas Dietrich, 40. Guido, 50. John Catlin, 90. Francisco Laporta, 150. And Wilco at 200. I think that field is highlighted by Shane Lowry and Tyrell Hatton and Billy Horschel, who might as well just leave the PGA Tour and join the European Tour because the guy is playing awesome in Europe. So I don't know why he's playing the PGA Tour anymore, but yeah, those are the big names on the Euro. So I kind of am going to enjoy the Euro event this week. I'll be watching both, and I'll also be watching football this weekend. So a lot of good golf and some football this weekend for sure. Nope, I lost him. Oh, yeah. So I think we lost Tony, but yeah, just thanks for tuning in, guys. That's our betting cards for the week. If you have any questions, tweet out to me or Tony, and our Twitter handles. Tomorrow night, me and Chris will have an NFL show. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks to Mike behind the window and producing our show, and we will see you guys next week.